Good morning, folks. This is Old School with WhatTheBuck.net, reporting to you live from our lovely Valrico studios this morning. I just got back from taking my son to daycare, was listening to morning radio, 10:10 a.m. here in the Tampa Bay area, and had a couple of interesting conversations with the hosts on air I wanted to go over with you guys. But first, I want to report Pro Football Talk is reporting by way of Jay Glazer and Fox Sports that the Jets actually have the best offer on the table right now for Brett Favre, not the Bucs, and that no deal is imminent, as was previously reported by the Tampa Tribune. Now, these reports are, of course, speculative. You never know who they're getting their information from. I know that us Tampanians, or whatever you want to call us, I know tampons is a funny way to say that, but people from Tampa who follow the Tampa Bay sports news do take what the local papers report with a grain of salt, generally speaking, but it did seem as though something was in the works relatively rapidly, especially in light of Brian Griese's absence, Chris Sims taking the first team snaps, etc. So, but the latest does seem to be from Pro Football Talk by way of Fox Sports News that the Jets have the sweetest deal. Now, that being the case, we need to look at the Jets and think about, well, if I were Brett Favre, would I go to the Jets or would I want to come to Tampa? And you have to look at the two teams to determine what that decision would be. Well, we, as Bucs fans, obviously we're going to be biased towards the Bucs, but I think a lot of people have already kind of jumped on the bandwagon with regards to our offensive line. Young, talented, strong, improving offensive line, certainly in the run game, which should yield a significant output given what Ernest Graham did last year in a relatively small period of time. He's coming in as a starter. We have a deep backfield behind him. They should get a significant amount of carries and significant yardage, which will open up the opportunity for our passing game. Our receivers are suspect, with Joey Galloway being old and oft injured, but still very, very fast. Mike Clayton looking good in training camp, but he always does. And pretty much unknowns behind that with Antonio Bryant and Maurice Stovall leading the list. So that, by and large, shouldn't matter, generally speaking. Brett Favre has worked with no-name receivers before, as long as he's got a stalwart like he had Donald Driver or Sterling Sharp, any of these characters in the past that he could work with, would always allow him to open the field up. Now, one of the things that people have been saying in the Tampa Bay area anyway is we can't take the Brett Favre interceptions, right? He's going to throw a lot of picks. And in order to stand up to those kinds of picks, you've got to have a defense that can handle it. And the Buccaneers defense was pretty damn good last year, right? Number 2 overall, number 1 against the pass. I'm going to pull up some stats here in a second and take a look. But I think that, by and large, you'll see that from a defensive perspective, we are more than ready to take over if Brett Favre has a lot of interceptions. I want to take a look and see where Green Bay rated. Actually, Green Bay was number 11th overall last year in defense, and we were number 2. So generally speaking, we'll have that ability to make up for the mistakes he makes, and the flip side of that is we'll be able to take advantage of the number of touchdowns that he throws, which is far in excess of what Jeff Garcia has generally thrown. Now, let's look at the other side of the coin, which would be the New York Jets. To go to the New York Jets, first of all, you have to go to the Jets. The New Jersey Jets, essentially, and no offense to anyone from Jersey, my wife's from New Jersey, but this is not the big media team, the mass market team that people think of when you think about being a football player wanting to go to a large media market. Tampa Bay, being the host of the Super Bowl, has, I think, better media appeal, if nothing more than this year. And when you're talking about Brett Favre's age, you're really not looking more than a year down the road. We can all hope it's 2 if it happens, but generally speaking, you're looking a year down the road. So then you have to look at their actual intangibles. Well, they need a decent rushing game. They had the 19th overall rushing offense, which is not particularly good. And their defense, as we just talked about, was 18th overall. So when you talk about being able to absorb the turnovers, the mistakes, etc., that defense in New York with the Jets is certainly not that caliber in my opinion. So the other conversation we had this morning was about whether the Packers should just kind of hold on to him and make him less valuable. And football players, I've talked about this a lot on the show on What the Buck, are essentially, this is horse trading, guys. Warren Sapp said it, this is a form of modern-day slave trade, and I don't mean to bring in any sort of political ramifications to that, but the contract structure is heavily skewed towards the franchise. They own Brett Favre. They will do whatever is in their best interest with that asset that they own. It's not as simple as I have a depreciating asset, I should just get whatever I can get for it, because I was already willing to get nothing when he retired. Because there's a risk associated with him going to another team and making them pay for that decision down the line. So, if I were them, I would want to get rid of him as well and get something for it, because that's something for nothing. I would want to get him as far away from us as I could, which means that I would actually look at the Jets, and if Brett couldn't kibosh that trade, that's the deal I would make. But at the end of the day, as long as he doesn't go to another NFC North team, I would be happy. So that's the news for this morning. Latest news, no deal is imminent according to Pro Football Talk by way of Fox Sports News. If you want more information, please tune in to What the Buck at whatthebuck.net or on our YouTube channel. Thanks so much for listening.